What is up, everybody? I'm back with another podcast, and today we've got Mr. Derek. What's up, Derek? How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk to you because we haven't really spoken since you guys started playing matches on 100. Oh my god!
Oh
Oh my
no.
god!
Oh my God. He
On
said it.
EG. But that's the thing. It's like we had 2022 with 100 Thieves, us working closely together, and then 2023, and that was the whole thing. So I think we should kind of go from like Rise to the present day a little bit because you've had a really interesting career. Obviously,
Yeah.
your brand sort of initially stems from Overwatch, and but is it fair to say that when you got into 100 Thieves, that was like the highest sort of level of competition you'd played?
Yeah. It's fair to say that because I'd say it was the highest composition when we went to champs because up until that point it was really like I guess you could well at that point stage it was like kind of like playoffs and you still would play against okay, yeah, it was the highest competition.
Well, I mean, and that's really awesome, and the whole trajectory of your career is super interesting. So, you started out with Rise, and I think that's when you began to really make a name for yourself. You had that LCQ tournament in particular where you guys did super well. How are you feeling as a player with regards to your prospects at that point when you were with Rise? Because it was kind of like a group of friends, but you guys weren't sort of like a formalized like big org like 100 Thieves or something. So, like, what
Yeah.
was that part of your career like? Because again, you come from Overwatch, so I don't know how if you expected to be really good in Valorant and to have like a fully fledged professional career. But Rise, it must have felt like to you that hey, I'm actually really fucking good at this game.
Yeah, so well, to go back from the beginning, I did play Overwatch for like since the release of that game and whatever. I did play CS but not like pro or anything. I just played it casually with a bunch of friends. Um so I did have some form of like tac shooter experience. So I thought like Valorant was just a mix of both worlds where it was like tac shooter with abilities. So I really thought I would go crazy in this game. Um Fast forward to my Rise days, I actually didn't even have to trial for that team. It was more at the time they wanted to replace I think it was Anger who was their initiator, and it was Marved, NRG Marved, who told Poised and the entire team to pick me up because I was like a up and coming initiator player. And then yeah, I got into that team and there was a lot of stuff to learn because obviously those guys were like CS heads. It was Poise, Shanks, Neptune, and Calypso. All of them like former CS players. And I had a lot of catching up to do in terms of like spacing, macro gameplay, into the sense of like pulling rotations back and forth, seesawing the map. Um, I didn't have any experience with that like at a pretty high level. So that was probably the hardest aspect of it. I felt like my mechanics and my ability usage was pretty on point. Um, but yeah, it was a grind all the way through. I'm fast forwarding a lot between the beta Valorant and getting onto Rise because I felt like that was like a year and a half, 2 years between that time. But yeah, we won't go over that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really interesting time because obviously there were some initially sort of established like players and teams, like a lot of the CS players, obviously, at the first couple of years were doing pretty well with that past CS experience. But yeah,
Yeah,
it did seem like when you came in to do so well with Rise, you had like a really strong presence, especially like as a streamer as well. I felt
mm,
like I ran into a lot of people that kind of like would like knew how good you were just because of the ceiling they'd seen from your stream, and you had like a pretty big fan base despite not really being like a top flight professional at the time, but you had a really big fan base in Valorant, and I think it's largely because of the your personality and sort of what you showed on your stream. So it's been cool to see that because that was a lot of the hype that I think was there initially when you got picked up with 100 Thieves. is that, whoa, we've seen Derrek as this, he's like the super obvious choice for an initiator at that time
Mhm.
when we were building the team, and it wasn't super obvious necessarily for all of the positions, but everybody unanimously was like, okay, Derrek for this position makes the most sense based on where things are at the moment. So you were going into that beginning at 2022, like if Rise, the end of Rise was like 2021, and coming into the
Yeah.
beginning of 2022, you were going into with like really high stock value as an initiator. And I think you were in the conversation with the people like EU, like in a similar level, but not necessarily like, oh, we're not sure if this player's like super proven at the
Yeah.
tier 1 level, but we know that player would do well if given the opportunity. So you step into 100 Thieves. We had obviously it was the lineup with yourself, Asuna, Bang, Stella, and Will. And we stepped in also. As I remember, the first portion of the season had already come and gone, and that's when the
Mhm.
team blew up, and Sean and I and Mike joined, and then of course assembled the team. So we're
Yep.
going into like summer of 2022, or just beginning of summer of 2022. How was the experience for you, like making that transition across from Rise to 100 Thieves? It's like your first big org experience.
So I will say it was very surreal. This is bothering me so much. I'm sorry.
You're all good.
It was pretty surreal. Like even before joining 100T, with Rise blowing up, just because we couldn't find an org to sign us as five. Um, I had a bunch of these orgs that I dreamt of being on, like lining up and trying to fight for me to sign to their team, and I was just like, holy shit, I made it. Like I'm getting these offers that like I've only heard about. Like I've only heard about these salaries, and I'm like, oh my god, it's finally happening. Like everything I worked for is like it is paying off. Um, and then I told my agent Derek Chung, I was like, there's really only one org. If they asked me, I would play for them no matter what, and it was 100 Thieves. And his reply was uh something along the lines of, "Yeah, they want you," and I was like, "Fuck," because like I had, I think I've said this before already, but I had like TSM NRG phase. Um, I think maybe one or two more, but yeah, just like these top tier orgs that I grew up watching, just not even just in Valorant, but in other games too, like offering me a spot on their team, and I think that was like that's the dream for an up and coming player, is to see like all these orgs just fighting over you.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy going from I mean, just any team that's not that like that has that level of attention. It's just kind of crazy because there is definitely that sense of, okay, now I'm putting it on the line here for myself, but
Yeah.
there's also this like sense of responsibility. Am I keeping up with the expectation that I
Mhm.
have because of what I need to do for the org? Because they're investing in me, they're investing a
Yeah.
lot into me, and so that's
Yeah.
like a completely different, I think, feeling as a pro player. I actually don't know that people talk about it that much, but I
Mhm.
know it's something that when I was a player, I ended up leaving a pro team because I'm like I'm feeling that pressure, and I'm like, I don't feel like I can justify that with what I'm putting in right now, or what I can put in right now. So I'm going to step away from this. And
Yeah.
so with 100 Thieves, as everyone has already said 100 times, like it's one of the teams which has the most amount of sort of pressure behind it.
Oh yeah.
And so what was that feeling like for you? Because I think things went fairly well to begin with. We didn't
Yeah.
like play that many big matches, and people didn't expect a lot from the roster. But you're still 100 Thieves. So what was that dynamic like for you?
Yeah. Obviously, joining an org like 100 Thieves, it's like some all the popular like clout orgs have very like just very strong fan bases, obviously, and because of that, they expect a lot from the teams. They expect like championships and winnings, and 100 Thieves like historically has been pretty good in most of their games that they've played in. Um I would say when I first joined, I did feel a lot of pressure to kind of prove myself, to kind of prove that I deserve this spot. And that was kind of alleviated by the fact that it was a completely new roster, and the only like original player that stayed was Peter. Um, so in that sense, it kind of helped that like there is pressure by being on 100 Thieves, but it wasn't as much as if we built like a super team, because I don't think our team was a super team. Like you guys said, it was like a more of a long term, like we're gonna get reps and build out like an Astralis level team over the years. Um, which didn't happen, unfortunately. But uh,
Spoilers.
yeah, but I think there was definitely a lot of pressure, but it was not like pressure in the sense of, let's say, like a Sentinels super team or NRG super team, where it was like you have to win everything or you are a failure.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting just to kind of see how that dynamic feels for certain players, because obviously I think it was kind of well documented. It's something that Will struggled a lot with, which made sense too, because on top of everything else, he was the duelist, and then on
Yeah,
top of all of that, it was already sort of established that, hey, this is a duelist that is not like an Oppo necessarily. Like
yeah, yeah,
he can use it, but he's not going to be, a top 3 level sniper, or something like that. So, and it was a chamber meta too. So I think he felt like he was really receiving a lot of added pressure because of all those elements, and so his story is really interesting actually in 22. But how was the experience? Like, because there's a lot of new experiences. So you joined the org, so you've spoken a bit on sort of the pressure there, but also you're getting an experience of being going to the team house with this new team, and you've got Sean Gares as the head coach, sort of driving
yep.
force behind the team ultimately. So what was it like, sort of working with Sean Gares? Because I don't think you'd previously worked with like a sort of like a serious head coach, right? Although it was, even still, it was, for those of you who don't know, that was the first time Sean Gares did actually head coach. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Sean Gares was definitely my first like true coach, I'd say. I've had coaches in the past that have the title of coach, but it's more like, I don't think you guys should peak that, or uh, stuff like that. But um, working under Sean and Mike too, the way they like worked off each other was pretty. I definitely learned a lot from them. It was very interesting how Sh- Sean's just mind for the game worked, because it's like I watch his stream sometimes when he's watch partying, and like I can predict what he's about to say, just because like it's kind of the same when he was coaching us. So he would just go over around the exact same ways that he does like in his watch parties. Um, so yeah, I definitely learned a lot from those guys. But hmm, yeah,
Yeah, I think he is super interesting in this. He's very talented for being able to kind of pick stuff out and be able to explain like the most important point. I feel like, but
yeah,
whilst
yeah,
also kind of creating I think, or setting up, even if you've got no knowledge, even here is the framework. Now here's where my like really important point fits in that framework, so you can kind of get a good picture as to why it's so important, and then to draw your attention there. And it seemed like he did such a good job of that, obviously with the timeouts too, because I
the
was there
Sean Gares
listening to
timeouts.
those, and yeah, and I don't know if people understand it as well. I think, at least, because obviously there's like different versions of what he would do in timeouts, but the thing I always was the most impressed by was his ability to not say, okay, here's the thing from the playbook that's really good, or here's like the slight adjustment in the round, or here, here's where we should switch up, the way that we're doing the default. It'd be like, no, actually, hang on. He'll spot precisely, like he understands like the patterns of the opponent's rotations, let's
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
and so then he'll be like, okay, guys, if you guys do this, like you and like I don't know, like Will and Stella, you guys do this, and then this will cause this, and then he'll actually create a round on the fly and explain it
yeah,
really
yeah.
quickly, because he
There's
knows how
a
to exploit the opponents.
yeah. There's a big thing that I learned from him was fuck, what's the word? Uh, like getting your opponents used to one default, and then just
Conditioning.
like, yes, conditioning, and then he'll basically condition rounds um ahead of time, and then he'll like throw them off in a loop, and he'll use that conditioning to set up a fake round, and then he'll use that even further to like condition the fake and then fake off the fake. And I was just like, what is it? Like, bro, this there's levels on this, and it's like I think that's why his just like his brain for the game is just huge. I like, and I think I don't think it would have worked. And he said this before, but I don't think it would have worked with like a super team. And I really think he just sprinkled his brain, like his knowledge of the game, into all of us, and it was learned a lot from that guy, man.
Yeah, it was really cool too because there was obviously such a sense of trust as well, which is
Yeah,
obviously really important. Because I feel like even if there was a disagreement, like maybe like a disagreement in like the compositions or maybe like how you should maybe work them, I felt like at the end of the day, obviously, yeah, the head coach, does have the final say, generally speaking. But it felt like everyone was good with that. And because sometimes it feels like you can have a disagreement about something or how you should best do something, but and you kind of hold on to that a little bit, even if you're like, yeah, okay, we'll go and we'll try it your way. But
yeah,
with Sean, it felt like there was that level of trust that kind of the team could always believe in. So it didn't even really matter if there was as much, if there was any internal conflicts on ideas. Because I know, sometimes like maybe Seller wouldn't agree with maybe the composition or maybe even some of the approaches. But at the end of the day, he did a great job in terms of like um, through his respect for Sean and his position, being like, okay, I'm fully bought in, and
yeah,
that's not easy to do necessarily, especially if people don't really see the vision. And it felt like Sean brought a lot of that buy-in because of his because I don't think there's really another. It's hard to imagine another coach in the scene, or even if you do look at some of the most experienced coaches, it's hard to imagine someone that has the presence of Sean Gares with his history and his legacy in like Counter Strike.
yeah. That guy he's got some history to him, man. I definitely that was another like big selling point for me was joining 100 Thieves was like, damn, I watched this guy a lot back when CS was a thing and he was on playing on C9 and stuff. And I was like, I think it would be very stupid of me not to like want to play under him and like learn from him. Just because even if 100 doesn't work out, I feel like I'll grow as a player significantly.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people that were really interested because of Sean specifically. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I
for
had
sure.
the summer of 22 actually, or like maybe towards the end of the summer. I had Elige was talking to me because he really wanted to play with Sean, so he wanted to just to join that team.
Really?
So
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I forgot that was a thing. Yeah.
yeah,
There was a
because
world.
at the time, I don't think that he was. I think he was in a sort of point where he wasn't necessarily like super pinned down on a CS team. Maybe he was kind of coming towards an end of a roster in a
Yeah,
CS team.
yeah,
He was like considering his potential options, and I think just the, I think, I think. I think he had found an issue which I think a lot of players find, which is really talented player, but might not be in a team which has maybe the best system or the best individuals to
yeah.
that in the sense of the right fit for you to work with to get the most out of you. And I think that's
Mhm.
what he was looking for, especially back then. And I think because he knew Sean so well, he's like, oh, I wonder how it would be to play under Sean, and because he understands how Sean thinks.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a lot of people were attracted by Sean as a coach. How was that experience? As Sean like left the team, obviously, because we're kind of zooming towards the end of 2022, which we'll go back
Devastating.
again. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Uh, yeah, I was kind of sad hearing that he wasn't going to be our coach coming into franchising. I was like, man, he was a big portion of why we were so successful. I think. Just I think him and Mike just worked super well, and it was just like Mike losing his other half, and I'm just like, man, there's probably going to be a very different season for us, just because now Mike definitely has a lot more on his plate. Um, Obviously, we got James IRL to fill in that spot, but then we lost him right before the season started, which also kind of fucked us. Um, but yeah, we definitely lost a lot of our like I brought it up earlier, but Sean, or actually, I didn't bring this up, but I think we had a system where it was like the first 4 rounds was like all set up depending on what Sean and Mike wanted to do, and depending on what team we were playing. We would set up the first 4 rounds no matter what like the game was. Which was I honestly really like that system. I think it's a very good thing, especially in Valorant where the rounds can go by so quick. Just knowing like what you're doing right away, the first 4 rounds, and then past that, it's a freestyle. It comes down to mid rounding your IGL and all the other 4 players working together. I think I worked super well under that system. Um, so yeah, yeah, it showed losing him during that 2023 season was super rough for us.
Yeah, there's a lot of dynamic changes for sure. I think you touched on some of them. We'll definitely go into this more because as we get into the sort of that transition from 22 to 23. But just to like reiterate it, the first four thing for those people that are unfamiliar with the idea as well is it's like there's also another way that for the coaches to be able to say if they had done some if they done done some research on the team that we would be up against, say having some more control over how the opening default and the opening conditioning goes, and that can be kind of like a soft way for them to also if they want to essentially set up a way to counter strat with anti strat without actually having to say to the players, oh, when this happens like this and this and this and this. But I think
Yeah,
more
yeah,
like Derrek says, like Sean is more set up in a timeout off of that conditioning for the ways that he thinks the game should go, and to kind of have already kind of had that impact in how the calling should go and have that agreement with the IGL like before the game kind of starts. And it also also gives a sense of like it's supposed to be also help with slow starts, which we had issues
yeah,
with. So that if,
yeah,
if let's say
definitely.
Stellar is like not sure exactly what the opening call should be, it's already kind of set up and it's done so in a more methodical fashion too. So
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's a really cool system. I'd be curious to know how many teams use a system like that because I've heard some other teams do use that system. Are you aware of other people using it?
I mean, I don't really go around asking about other team systems, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are other teams that do it. I feel like Valorant is such a game where it's like, if you lose pistol already and you're down 2-0, it's like, and then, oh my God, if you get bonus too, I've, I I feel like your whole flow of the game is just you're always just playing catch up. So just knowing the first four and having and being confident in those first 4 rounds is so big that I feel like other teams might not use the first four, but they definitely have a game plan of like how they want to set up the first few rounds for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Um, and it's interesting too because we didn't get to that. We didn't get to that opening sort of style. I think too quickly. I think it took a while. I think it was actually the LCQ. Wait, was LCQ in 2022? Was that when it happened first? Because I know it didn't happen straight away. Because it kind of came in as a solution. Like, oh, we're having
Uh,
these like slow starts.
I think it was LCQ where we brought that up, or it was like towards the end of stage 2 playoffs, but
Mm.
I'm for sure LCQ.
Okay, well, so let's start talking more about 2022 then, because obviously, I think the way that the team was preparing was to try to play all maps, like all 7 maps, which is
Yeah.
a pretty bold undertaking, and especially for a
Yeah.
completely new roster. But that's how
Yeah.
Sean wanted to do it, and so at the first 3 months, I think were consumed by really trying to get that and like plans where you've got this many scrims on these specific maps per week to try to like build out that map pool. So the first like 2 to 3 months, I'd say like they went pretty. It felt like they went pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, hearing that we were gonna like try to get all 7 maps down like pretty good, I was like, damn. I mean, uh, to be fair, we did have a few months, like 2, 3 months, but like still like I feel like it's pretty hard for a new team to be like really like s- set on all maps. Um, but I mean, I feel like we did a good job with what the time we had.
Yeah, it definitely went pretty well because obviously with getting 0 points in the opening season because obviously like the roster blew up, etc. etc. Um, 13 0 by the guard and all that. It was a situation where it's like, okay, well we just have to qualify for the playoffs in season two in the second split, and then we'll be good to go. And managed to do super well in the week to week format because it turned out then again like it was a perfect format for Sean to like make bespoke
Let him cook.
setups. Yeah. And I think the guard was like one of the first matches we played, I think. And I remember like MC taking a timeout on the bind game after like round two because I think we played a comp with a Sage or something that he didn't expect.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right.
Yeah,
Our cringe sage comp.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Because that was like one of the things that Sean was having a great amount of impact on. It was like here is like because I remember he also said to me that there's no way that they would expect us to do this, so we're gonna do this. And
Yeah.
then to see like MC take a timeout in like basically the second round because it's like what the fuck like we did not prepare for this. That was really
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
satisfying to watch.
That gives you a lot of confidence as a new team, by the way. Just like making it the enemy team that's been together for a while take a timeout 2 rounds in is like, damn,
It
we
was
got them.
amazing. And that was a great start to the season too because I think we took like a loss maybe in the second or third week but it was a really good start but when we got to the playoffs that's when things went awry. I think we had that was the match where we had like the collapse against FaZe, I think,
I need
right?
to
Like one of
I
the
need
one
to
of the
I need to
collapses.
yes, there was a collapse for sure.
I'm bringing it up as well.
There was an ascent collapse for sure.
Dude, winning Ascent games. It seems like you can win Ascent games these days. That's pretty
Oh,
sick.
I went oh my god, off topic, but after we won that ascent versus Loud, oh my god. I felt like a huge weight off my shoulders just uh, fell away. I was like, I finally won on Ascent after like 2 years of losing on this fucking map that I love so much.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, for whatever reason, and we can talk about it a little bit, but as 100 Thieves, we never won like with the Derrek, Stella, Will, Bang, and Asuna roster. We never won Ascent, and in the new version of the roster as well in 23, also never won an Ascent game like in an official. The last official that 100 Thieves won on Ascent was against Cloud9, I believe, in the LCQ in 2022, and it's when Will suddenly just became his final
God,
evolution. Yeah.
final form,
Yes.
Lanimal will. Wait,
Yeah,
wait, okay,
dude.
wait, no. The last time we won Ascent was we did beat Tina on Ascent, but then we also beat FaZe on
Oh yeah,
Ascent. It
yeah,
was a 13-3. That
yeah.
was that was our 3-0. But then that was the last time. That was in August 13, 2022.
Damn, it's a while ago. But
So
yes,
we haven't won Ascent since.
but yeah, there was an interesting moment though. Going back to the season two challenges because we had that moment where there was like just the collapses just started happening, and it's like these mental blocks started happening for the team. Like, how well do you remember those?
I know for whatever reason, whenever we played FaZe, we had like I want to say at least 5 or 6 9-3 curses between both of us, and it was just something about that team eh, and other teams too. But like FaZe was one of those teams. I feel like XSET too. I feel like we could never do well against XSET at the time, but I don't know what it came down to. Maybe it was just like new roster, new mentality thing, or I mean, it was just easy for us to lose momentum when like you get sucker punched by Baby Bay getting like a 4K down mid like 3 rounds in a row. Um, but yeah, I feel like that's just something as a new roster you kind of have to. It's a hump that you got to get over, and I mean, eventually we did get over it.
Yeah, it's kind of scary because I remember there was like this. It's like one of those things like there was this piece of advice I got from like a mentor like a long time ago about competing, and he basically said like never allow one mistake to compound into other mistakes. So
Yeah,
like something goes wrong and then you start freaking out, and because you're like freaking out about that thing going wrong, now you're making more mistakes. And there was like some moments like that in that phase game because it was the I've got it pulled up now. It was the oh no, this is the wrong one. This is like the LCQ one. So here is the other
S2
one.
challengers, low bracket round two.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Yeah. The games are like so close, and like you said, there's always like 9-3s and stuff like that. And there was, I remember there was a moment against FaZe on Ascent where I think we got like kills sprayed down because someone hid in. There's that
It was
spot deep
It was
mid,
Baby Bay on the
Baby Bay.
bench.
Yes, on the
Yes.
bench, exactly. Yeah, and he just killed everyone because we are already a little bit too slow and like a little too hesitant.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
he just kills everyone because obviously if you don't place that smoke right, there's the gap. Everyone knows about it. Like I think because back then, people were a bit more sloppy with it in general, but now everybody knows about like that gap. And he just
Yeah.
killed everybody. And then it turned into like another round that was like needlessly lost in a very similar way around Catwalk.
Yep.
People being too slow, everyone getting into their own heads, and this happened like several times. And I think it's particularly interesting, and this is something I talked to Dapper about a bit, but because of the series that he had against Moistic Shopify, where they lost initially on Ascent, and it was like a massive comeback game from their opponents as well, because they
Yeah.
lost to themselves. That's kind of what I'm getting at, and it's very different to like lose to yourselves, where you know that you're the better team, and there's like no way in hell that you should ever lose, but then you lose, and I feel like
Yeah.
that was a dilemma that we kind of had. And it can be the hardest thing to get over sometimes because it's your own mental demons that are kind of coming up in the match that are stopping you from winning. So, but obviously LCQ happens, and
Oh yeah.
we go into LCQ, and it seems like somewhat normal of like a normal tournament to begin with, and then there's that we have that defeat against FaZe, and then what happens is we get 2-day break, and I remember
Oh yeah.
like the emo, everyone's emo right after the loss. Everyone's really emo. Everyone's doing like I'm doing a pep talk. Sean has got his version of a pep talk. We're really trying to like rally everybody. Like, do you remember that like that gap between losing to FaZe again in
I
another game we
remember
should
it
have won, and then that 2-day gap?
very vividly. Just imagine it's 1-1. You go into Ascent, you're up 9-3. You're up 9-3, and then they just win not they just win 10 rounds in a row. I that was the most I think that was one of the lowest points of my career was losing that. Obviously we had lower brackets, so thank God for that, but just looking back at this match page is just it is devastating.
Yeah, it's really interesting because obviously then as well it's like, okay, well that's obviously the easier path. If you go down to the lower bracket, loser bracket, you're gonna have to play more matches. And so then it
Yeah.
was of course this gauntlet of matches where we had to play a Sentinels team that had, I mean, they'd only been, I think, practicing for maybe like 3 weeks. I think Kaplan had, was that when Kaplan had just like first joined them? I think it was. And they had, tens, they had
Truth.
Zelsis, Shazam, Dapper, and Shroud. Yeah, like
Yeah.
the like super clouted lineup. And honestly, that felt like one of those matches, kind of like the MIBR game where we kind of lost in the regular season in 23. It felt like one of those matches where it's like, if you're gonna lose a match in the LCQ now, this is the one you're going to lose because it's against like the most clouted opponents possible in this like Sentinels 100 Thieves clout match. Everyone's
Yeah.
going to be watching this. Yeah, there's no way in hell that we should ever lose this game because we're the better Valorant team. But if you add all these extra factors, they can really play with people's minds a bit. So I was so nervous because I'm like, if we get eliminated, if our year is over because of these guys, that's going to suck.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say Sentinels is kind of kicking 100 Thieves ass in this fucking whole racket so far. I think their record is something like 100 Thieves has only beaten them like 3 times or something out of their however many games.
Crazy.
But I will say, and I think we've talked about it before, and I've said it before, but I think us losing to FaZe at that moment and getting knocked down to lower was probably the best thing to happen to us, just because we fixed so many of our gaps over that 2-day period, and I feel like we were so confident coming into like all these other matches just because of that. I felt like we knew we should have won it, and that just like that loss reinforced our mental. I felt like
Yeah, like I think obviously I think Peter played super well in the LCQ. I think obviously you had an amazing run in the LCQ too. This was like the
LCQ
event
merchant.
where you had all the clutches, like the clutch game. Yeah, like I don't remember what your clutch statistics were offhand, but it was pretty insane the amount of clutches you won. It was kind of unprecedented. I think even now, actually, the amount of clutches you won. if I'm not mistaken. It was a lot of clutches for one tournament. And then on top of that, Will is like actually like unlocked himself because he had in that Cloud9 game on Ascent, he played chamber. He did like these confident moves where he's like walking down cat
Yeah.
and getting these picks by himself and like feeling the game and like hitting these like really clutch like defensive shots, getting that extra kill that just like guarantees the round on the
Yeah.
defense. Like he was doing all those things right. And I felt like that was like a really sick like moment for him to like unlock as well.
Yeah. I remember vividly, like before we played the C9 match, I knew it was gonna be tough. C9 was I thought they were looking pretty strong, and I always have trouble playing at C9. Um, kind of had PTSD because I got 13 0 by C9 last year, LCQ. But anyways, uh, when I saw Will, we were down 4-0, and then Will, or basically won one round, and then Will suddenly like he flipped the switch or something, and bro, that guy was just like, my God, I was just in his backpack. It was very nice. I was like, this guy is just owning them.
Yeah, Will's such an interesting player, actually. This 2022 was a really interesting year for him because he really did go from zero to hero in that year, and he put in a lot of work. Maybe just we can just like take a moment to remember Will in
Thanks, Will.
in the 2022 version of the roster because he brought obviously much like when Sean left, I felt like there was a Will shaped hole as well in the team after Will was gone too, and it wasn't easy to. I don't think that hole's ever been filled because Will is just such a unique person, and he was the glue
Yeah,
guy. I think ultimately in that team, and I don't know that people really saw him that way from the outside, but he was definitely
yeah.
like a glue guy.
I try to always tell after every match, I was like, I wouldn't be able to like have these stats or like clutch every run the way I do if I didn't have like Will and Peter just running it down brainlessly. Like there was literally one round, it's like a 3v1 or something, and it was on Breeze or something, and Will go he's on Jet, updraft dashes at the guy, and he's like, just kill him, just trade me. Like it's small things like that where you could play it disciplined and be like, let's off him and let's play this off angle and yada yada yada. But Valorant sometimes is a game where sometimes your will has to be like, I'm not giving this guy the chance to do anything. I'm just gonna updraft dash onto him, and then I know my boys are gonna get me. And then those kind of like little rounds don't come up in the leaderboard. But I mean, that's why I give him a lot of praise because he was a very good teammate in that aspect.
Yeah. What like I would love for you to describe as well like what's your overall sense of the like maybe you can just think of the team how the team was performing towards the end of the year, but just like what was your overall sense of how you felt like the team's style of play was in terms of like what made the team good, like whether it's like trade spacing or whether it's just the rifles or the communication, like really anything that comes to mind. I'm curious like what your take on like, when you think back, what was that version of 100T so good at?
We're talking specifically the Will roster, right?
Yeah, the Will roster. Yeah.
Okay. I think it was a combination of a mixture of hungry players that were also Will, Sean, and Peter were very good friends even before they like signed to the team. I think it was just honestly we were having fun playing the game. It felt like playing ranked and scrims with a bunch of your boys every time we played a match. That's what it felt like. I felt like there was a lot of trust. I felt like our spacing was really good. I felt like we thrived in the chaos. That's like kind of the thing we were known for. Is just like you have Austin and Will on your team. Like they just they just run it down. I feel like that's why our fracture was very good. Was because we had the the pieces to just like kind of set that fast fracture tempo where it was like if the attackers took something from us, we would be just as fast to take something back from them. And I think Peter and I were like known for our A main hold, where we would literally just fight to the death and we wouldn't care like how many attackers there were in A main. Um, I feel like the amount of trust that we had for a new team was pretty significant because sometimes I see rosters that are together for way more months, or like cores that have been for together for years, and sometimes I see like there's still a lack of trust within like just swinging or taking space, or you can tell that one guy is thinking something and the other guy is thinking another thing, and those milliseconds of delay that are just they'll lose you rounds.
It's I love that point actually because I've been watching a lot more CS lately, and like one of the best teams in CS right now is Team Spirit with Donk. I think
Donk.
everyone's heard of Donk. And one
Yep.
thing that's super interesting about that team is if you remove sort of the name value or like the names and stuff like that at this point, just kind of like look how they react as a unit on the server. It really fits what you described in the sense of if someone takes something, we take something back almost harder. So like every
Yeah.
time like the other team tries to take some space away from you, you make it so hard for them to gain the extra inch each time. Like you're there so fast, you're all moving forward. Like there's no indecision or hesitation. Everyone's on the same page, and it costs you a lot every time you want to get that extra inch against them. And
Yep.
that is yeah, that I totally feel you there because we definitely had like such great like movement as a team with rifles. And it was obviously the chamber meta as well was
Yeah.
super interesting. We're like a team that could be super competitive without the chamber, but maybe one of the only ones in the world at that time. Because and again because we're working with Will, and the fact that that wasn't a strength of Will and that didn't make him super comfortable, and that was interesting. Do you have any sort of like lingering thoughts as to like what that was like being a team because it wasn't all roses with Will like to begin with. Like
For sure.
it did feel like I think the whole team did feel like, well shit, if we had a good chamber, then we would have won the game.
I ain't saying nothing. No,
um
but it definitely at the point you could feel sometimes where like fuck we I wish like I wish our op presence was just like a little bit better sometimes, but I feel like the band-aid fix that we had was just running it down harder than like faster than these chambers could op us was pretty decent. And honestly, Will wasn't even a bad chamber. I think obviously his like mentality maybe wasn't the best at the time given like all the pressure that he had, but I didn't think his chamber was like horrible. Um I think we could have done like a way better job of setting him up the the same way he sets us up on Rays. But yeah, I mean, I can agree that there were definitely some points where like shit, these guys got like the goats on chamber, and well, we're just gonna have to run it down, I guess.
yeah, I mean it makes sense. It makes sense because it's I mean well for one reason you don't really know like what you would be giving up. Like if you just like if you stuck Wardell in there at the time or something, like you don't know
Yeah,
well maybe some of the things you'd be giving up, but let's say just from the sheer perspective of oh we don't have a chamber player that is like within like 10 ranking points of this other chamber player or something. So we
yeah,
kind of,
yeah,
and it's a heavily chamber dominated meta. So it feels like we're losing, like before the game started, we're kind of losing in this area. But I think one thing that, in looking back on the 2022 roster and kind of seeing where the issues were in the 2023 roster is that I think you're kind of seeing actually what happened, what could happen, where you're losing a player that is the glue guy that's also very selfless and creates a
yeah,
huge amount of space for the team and creates this world where the team can move really fast. And I noticed that when the team like 100 Thieves was always at its worst. I feel like when the team was moving slowly, because the slower the team moved, the more indecisive the team was, and the more cracks started to show. But if there's someone that's taking the initiative, and then it's like a waterfall effect, everyone's sort of like, going after that player is taking all the correct decisions that would result from like whatever that player's initial move was, but someone's taking the initiative, and everyone else will keep the pace. But as soon as we got into a spot where like let's say the collapses against phase that we referenced, whole team slowed down. People were more indecisive. And
Yeah,
then in the 2023 version of the team, it felt like there was a lot of suffering from indecision and the lack of confidence that comes from that, and then the lack of trust in your teammates that comes from that too. So it feels like maybe, despite on paper at the time thinking, oh, wish we had a better operator player, we probably didn't realize what the cost would have been to switch out
yeah.
Will.
You never know what you have until it's gone, man.
Yeah, so it's
I
so
will,
true.
I will say the iteration with Busio now leading the front, and I really liked what they did with it, where Matt's playing Smokes and Peter's back on like raise maps. I think they played like very well. You can kind of tell um, that they regained a little bit of their confidence, and I feel like they could have closed out any of their series uh, if had like some of their rounds went their way, like if they didn't get thriftied,
Yeah.
100 thrifties. Fuck. Um, but yeah, I like the direction they're going now for sure.
Yeah, it does feel like they're trying to brute force a little bit some of the solutions that they need, like because there's different ways to get to the outcome of we want people to just be more confident and to take more fights, and
Yeah.
you can just like brute force it and be like, okay, like guys, take fights, take fight. Like, even in spots where it's like maybe not the best thing, but you're trying to remind everyone that they're good enough that they can just take these fights. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like the confidence that does seem to be appearing there, and it does look like Busio is creating loads of pace because his job is kind of crazy because he's kind of like the glue guy in many respects. He's like got
That he
massive
is
energy,
that kid is yeah, that
so
kid
much
is
leadership.
he's like Will on crack. I feel like that
It's
he
incredible, and he can play so many agents too. I feel like he can play so many agents really well.
yeah, that he can play pretty much anything that he puts his heart to, I feel like. But he has his play style.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. That's so funny. But yeah, let's like wrap up 2022. So we've won LCQ. Everyone is like hype as fuck because it's really awesome. Everyone played super well. Everything is coming together, and then now we've qualified for champions. So we've got Istanbul around the corner, and because of the way these tournaments work, you don't get much time to kind of practice anything. Pearl had just been added
Yeah.
to the map pool, but hey, we've got to fly out in a few days, guys, to get to
Fuck it.
Istanbul. So there we are. And I remember you guys like making call outs for Pearl, like in the practice room in the hotel at Istanbul, because like we had never touched the map because we were playing for LCQ, which did not have the map. So it was like
Yep.
brand new, like first week, brand new to everyone at the tournament, and we're like preparing it. And then we play in the opening game against Fnatic and win.
Yeah, nice. I honestly think that was like a big, super big confidence booster, especially seeing my boy Lanimal Will. He went 26 17 6-2 FK FD. Oh my god. Like he was going crazy. Um but yeah, I thought Istanbul was a series of unfortunate events, let's just say.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I'm curious what your perspective is on this because from where I was standing, I was watching like every stream, and I was just seeing how the team's form was at the event. The team's form it felt like top four easily. Like the form of the team, like every single scrim against every single team was like complete domination. Like it was complete domination. And I don't really understand, how that was the case, but everyone was just in insane form at that event, super confident, and and then obviously like those like really shitty circumstances, hit us. But first of all, like what was your feeling of the form of the team and the levels of confidence and stuff at the event before everything went wrong? That is.
I mean, and I feel like in the manner that we won LCQ and the way we qualified for champs, I felt like we got the most amount of reps possible. So going into a tournament like that, you feel super confident. Like you went through a gauntlet and you made it. You played like 5 or 6 BO3s or whatever, and to like 2 BO5s, and you 3-0'd both teams you had a BO5 in. I We were definitely feeling confident up until the point where the positive test rolled around. And you're like, fuck. And then I personally, for me, mentality wise, I was like, eh, I could just feel myself not only like physically like slowing down, but like mentally it was like very taxing just staying in that hotel room for like 9 days by myself. Um, so yeah, I felt like we were doing our best given the circumstances, but that was like really rough. Was knowing that this was my first like big international LAN, and uh, I I I could not play at my best. I like no matter how hard I tried, I could not play at my best.
Yeah, it was because I think you were the first one that got sick, right? I think.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
patient zero.
Derrek got sick straight away, and then that was already like, oh my god, oh shit, now okay, how many days of practice are we going to lose? And that was like what
Yeah,
we were thinking of then, because it may not seem like much, but if you're at a tournament, like you want to have as much practice as you want to have, and it's usually
especially
going to be a
especially
lot.
with like teams that you've never played. Like we're playing teams in other regions, so it's very important that we like got reps on like how these other teams played, because up until then we've only played NA teams.
So yeah, there's like all this. There's a lot riding on that practice and I think it's something again that if you're not on the competitive end, you may not understand like how important it is or it feels for a team or players. Obviously, it makes intuitive sense. Yeah, practice is important, but like it really feels like you need it, like you need to breathe when you're at like a tournament like that. You really want to
Yeah,
get those reps in, and so it was devastating when we're like, oh fuck it, Derrek can't play, so the whole team can't practice. But then I think like a day or two later, like 4 or 5 other people get positive tests. Everyone except me and Will got positive tests, and so then the entire team was in quarantine land. And like for the first matchup, I think against Fnatic, because I think it was with Fnatic, we had Will. Wait, no, we played that
no,
completely
we
from the
all
hotel, right?
yeah we all
Yeah.
we all played in isolation rooms, but it was only Will that was like tested negative, but we still had to.
Yes.
It was like you need a minimum of like 3 players in order to play on the stage. So
Yeah, and then we had that match again, and then somehow the team won against Fnatic. That was pretty crazy.
what do you mean
Um,
somehow, bro?
despite everyone having COVID and being stuck in the hotels, and because also we weren't able to practice as much because everyone was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so wrecked and everything from COVID. So
I mean, my boy Will. Jeez, he was seeing us like struggling, being all sick, and he was like, "All right, man, let me just go plus 21 real quick.
yeah, yeah, but I might.
300 ACS over the series. My goodness, my goat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He did such a sick job. Oh my god! And on Bind too, he like crushed as well, even though he lost Bind. Yeah, he
Yeah,
was just unstoppable. But yeah, I remember that game actually. The win against Fnatic on Pearl was really interesting because again, it was a map that we had no reps on. We had like 5 days worth of reps on the map, and they qualified from the regular season, so they had a lot of time to practice it. But what stood out to me, I remember at the time was sort of like the what you said again, like how well the team took space together and swarmed together and the retakes with the rifles, like the super dynamic stuff. That's kind of really well where it felt like some of the edges came in for the team because you guys were able to like we had a lot of set stuff that I think that was good, but I think what ended up happening in 2023 that we kind of lost was one of the things I think we were really good at in 2022 at the end of 2022, which is like adapting on the fly and just
yeah,
like you guys all being like really confident and trusting each other to make like calls and playing off each other really well. That seemed to
yeah.
go away in 2023, I think, um, but yeah, that Fnatic match was really sick. What a way to open the tournament. And how are you feeling after like beating Fnatic after that opening match? Do you remember like how that was?
Bro, I was like, holy fuck, we're gonna win this fucking thing. I was like, dude, we are insane, man. And then, and I was like, it was both like very happy, but and also very sad. I was like, I can't even celebrate with my fucking boys because like we're just
Yeah,
stuck in fucking COVID. And then we win our match, and it's just like we had to go straight back to our hotel rooms, and it was just a very fucked experience.
that was rough. Oh my god. Yeah, we had, and I think the maybe the worst. I think I don't know if this one is okay. Yeah, I think this one's worse. So obviously at that event we played Fnatic, DRX, and then Fnatic again.
Yeah.
So the match against DRX was to qualify for top 8 for playoffs, and that's essentially what that
Oh
match
god.
was on the line in that match. And
Yeah.
it was really crazy because the game plan against DRX was really good because Sean Mike did a great job. DRX is a very readable team Like you just have to watch their games. You know exactly what they're going to do. They just have really sick players,
Yeah.
and on the maps that we had them against, they were really readable as well. But it was like the worst, like the peak of the worst with the COVID situation, because we had this spot where we had, what was it, like Will? Okay, so obviously Will is he's just an impenetrable fortress of a human. He didn't get touched by COVID. He's still fine. And and then Bang, I think, gets let out of COVID jail. And then also, there was one more. Was it
It was
you?
me.
It was you. Yeah,
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 I got
you.
out.
Yeah, you got let out too. So we've got three people that get let out. But that happened. That call was made from Riot's end, I think, on the day of the match. So we didn't know that we were going to get the third player. And like Derek said, the significance is that if you have three players that sort of are cleared to leave their hotels, essentially, then they will play on stage, which was really
Yep.
fucked actually, because it was actually better if everyone was actually in quarantine together, like just in their own quarantine, because now we're in a situation where the whole team was like split up. So you've got, like, I went with Derek, Bang, and Will to the event, and then you've got Asuna, who's stuck in quarantine, Stella, who's stuck in quarantine, and then Sean, who's also stuck in quarantine, and Michael's also actually still in quarantine as well.
Yeah.
So
That whole day just felt very disjointed, and it's just like it. It really. I wouldn't say it messed with the team dynamic, but it just felt the whole day just felt off. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but it was just like it didn't feel right going on stage with only three of us. Like I was excited, obviously, to just go on a stage because that's what I was here for. I was like, there's no way I made it here to not play on stage and play in that fucking room for every match. So deep down, I was excited to go on that stage, but the other part of me was like, man, I really wish I had all my guys up here and my coaches.
yeah, 'cause that was your first international stage match, right?
Yeah,
As well as
yeah.
for Bang too, and Will's
I think
second.
all of
No,
us.
Will as well actually. Yeah, Will as well. Yeah. No, of course, yeah. First stage match for all of you guys. So that was like another thing going to the event where I'm like, okay, I know the team's really sick, but I have no idea how anyone's going to react playing on stage. Like, I have no idea
Yeah,
what's going to happen with that. So that was the whole thing. But it was what, yeah, you were totally right. Like the disjointedness, because like, DRX didn't have any issues with COVID, fortunately for them. So they all have their normal day of preparation. They have their 3-4 coaches traveling with the team, being able to talk with the team, prepare with the team, like normal. And we've got a spot where both our leadership in the team, Stella and Sean, are in quarantine, and they're not allowed to talk to anyone, basically. Because what happened is like they get pulled to the quarantine rooms, because you're in your hotel room where you're not allowed to leave. And then, but there is, if you're going to play, they have rooms set up. So they'll then transport you. Someone will come for you and then
and they
take
take your
you
phone.
and take your phone. Yes, exactly. And then you'll go to that room. And because of when they want people to be basically like ready to go, like it ended up being the case that Sean, Asuna, and Sella got taken really like quite early. Like so they're just without a phone, sitting in that room for like up to 2 hours or something, like an hour and a half at least before the
It was a
game
very
was going to
long
start,
time.
like, or more. And I know that Stella like he wasn't able to eat because he was, because of the quarantine and because so many people are stuck in the hotel. He ordered food from the hotel because he knew, okay, this is going to be safe, this specific thing. So he ordered something for himself, and that was so delayed because of so many orders that when the food
Yeah,
finally was about to arrive to him, he'd just been taken away so he's now not eaten for like 8 or 9 hours, and he's like in that room now just sitting there in despair because he can't even talk to anyone. He actually cannot communicate with anyone.
it
So
was horrible.
then there's a spot where none of the leadership of the team can talk to anyone in the team until like agent select.
Yeah, it
It's
was.
like until agent
Jesus,
select.
it was Jesus Christ.
So,
Until we got on
oh
stage and
man,
we're like, we finally heard their voices. We're like, oh my god.
yeah. So that's like a really hard thing, because you always, you never want to like look at a tournament and be like, like this
What
thing
if?
or
What if?
that
What
thing,
if? Yeah.
yeah, and these excuses or like something like that, or the what ifs. But it's hard not to feel like pretty sad about that, because the team was in such good shape that it feels like if there
Yeah.
wasn't those factors, coming into because there is different there's like small things like, oh, the PCs, like the FPS sucks a bit, or like the practice setup isn't very good. There's like small things at these lands and these tournaments that you have
Everyone
to know
has
how
to
to
go
deal
through.
with. But
Yeah.
this felt like pretty extreme, and it felt pretty extreme because only some people had to deal with it at a given moment. Like I said, DRX had they didn't have anyone affected, so their full team is like totally fine. But anyway, we don't have to kind of go on more about that. Obviously, we had the match against Fnatic afterwards, which ended up being a loss. But it did feel like the team was kind of demoralized at that, like by that point. I think that DRX game really fucked people up in the head. How did you feel about the
Yeah.
DRX match? Like having
That
played it out
one
and stuff.
was we were we were up. How much were we up?
Let's see, 2, 4, 5.
I know there was just this crucial round where, yeah, we were like 12. We had 12.
Yeah, we were 12-9 up.
12-9, yes. And then there was this one round where this guy was just backside B, and he was 1 HP, and it was me and Beaton, and I tried to shock him, and we were very disjointed, and we did not kill that guy. I don't remember who it was, but yeah, from there it felt like the game just slowly like was getting out of our grasp. Shanzo was looking like the fucking goat on that map, by the way. Like, that kid was playing out of his mind, the things that he was doing in that game. So I'm sorry we let you down, Shanzo. Jesus Christ, 35 and 23.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely losing that first map in the fashion that we did was definitely, it was pretty rough, I gotta say. I could tell like a lot of our momentum was definitely lost during that, because I mean we went to how many OTs? We went to like 5 OTs, and then yeah, come. I mean, again, another what if, but like, there's another world where if we just closed out Breeze and then Fracture is just like one of our maps that we're super confident on. There's a world, man.
Yeah, I think things changed a lot because everyone's out of COVID jail, and then like you get a situation where you can kind of recover a bit. But
Yeah,
but it did seem like that match was difficult because sometimes it's a situation where confidence is maybe like not like there or something like that a little bit, and people missing
yeah,
some shots. But that game really felt like it was like mental fatigue a lot as well for people because the DRX were doing things that we knew precisely what they were doing pretty much all the time. But there's that, but then also making the right decisions at the right times, and then hitting the shots with like the right level of energy. Kind of you have enough like in the tank to be able to
yeah,
like perform those shots. But it felt like it was an underperformance below what you would even expect to be an underperformance on a given day. And I think it's because of those conditions. Like the conditions were really difficult for the players to deal with. So I think it's really hard when you're like looking around and also like everyone's struggling. Like you said, Sean
yeah.
managed to kind of hit some shots and stuff, but the whole team was like really struggling on the form, and that was really challenging because that DRX team was extremely beatable. But hey, it's all in the past now, isn't it? It's all in the past.
What if?
So I mean, ultimately though, in conclusion for 2022, like it was like a pretty successful year, like going from like not being really in contention at all to creating like a scrappy little team, and then kind of getting towards champs and looking like one of the best teams in the world towards the end of the year. I think it was a pretty successful year.
Yep.
Um, any big takeaways from 2022 for you in terms of like your career? Exactly, maybe things that you've kind of discovered about yourself along the way, or like things that really stuck with you about that year.
Well, I did get the title of like being an LCQ merchant from that year, but I will say LCQ was not the only tournament like I had good stats in. I had pretty decent stats in like stage 2 playoffs and whatever. But anyways, um I think that was the year where I proved to myself that I was like, I really do have a future in this. I think my peak as a player, I can like take over a series if I'm like in really good form, and I have if my boys trust me, and um And yeah, I mean, I think 2022 was, yeah, it was just a year I was like, it lit a fuel, it lit a fire in me, even like stronger to compete no matter what.
Yeah, I think it's I think I had a similar takeaway from that year too. It felt like, okay, all these guys can compete with the absolute best players in the world, and there's like no question
Yeah.
about it. Like there's no question about that. I think that again, going towards the beginning of the year, the big question about that was can Will do that? Because that was the, it's like, oh, you've got to have like a really sick duelist, like a star level player in that role, if you're going to succeed and be the best in the world. And at that event, I was like, oh well, fuck. Will has answered. He has answered the call here. He's done a great job. This entire team can perform at the absolute best level. And with
My
that COVID
goat.
thing, that COVID thing happening, with all the what ifs that feel so plausible, it's like I feel like it could have been a top four finish. So it wasn't. It wasn't. But you guys are all killers and prove that you could do it on LAN as well. So going into roster mayhem, we end up getting cryo and then going to Manchester to play the Red Bull Homegrounds event, and that event obviously went pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, we won it, so yeah, it went pretty well.
Yeah, killed, just crushed everyone. I mean, it wasn't the super fast. It wasn't like a super fast start, but just right from the get go, everyone was just kind of like hitting. It kind of felt like all of the matches was somewhat it felt like there was no pressure anywhere, to be honest, in any of the matches. You guys just kind of just seemed to own the
Okay, there
whole
was,
time.
I will say the hardest one was Liquid, where it was 1-1, and then we played Breeze, and we were up like 9-3, and they almost came back on us, and that was like the scariest game in the event. But thank God we closed that game out
What do you think
because
worked so well at that tournament? Because obviously, like going into the rest of the year, things don't go so well. I'm sure most people are kind of familiar with the performance, but why was the team so sick? Like, what was so sick about that event?
uh I felt like it was a mixture of like, I don't want to say a honeymoon phase because that's like a cop out, but I just felt like we are just playing super well. Like obviously Matt on Chamber was very good. Like he was like in peak Xset form. Like just his stats were insane. Like his stats on like Jet and Chamber were like insane. I think the whole team was just playing super good. Um, I think we still like carried over stuff from like Coach Gares into that tournament before he left, and I mean, obviously, the level of competition wasn't like the highest it ever was. Like, it's not like a champs level tournament, but there were some pretty good like franchise teams in this that, um, I think on paper everyone thinks we should beat. Which we did, and I think just kind of like the same LCQ format where it was kind of a gauntlet to get to the grand finals. I think we were building confidence with every win that we got.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense. It's interesting because then you get into I guess like a lot of the, wait, was it called a lockdown tournament? What was it called?
Homegrounds.
Homegrounds, lock in, Brazil
Oh,
lock in.
lock in.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you go from that, because that was like the kickoff tournament for the year, the Brazil lock in tournament, and that's when things started to look kind of hairy. Like like the team had a lot of legs to it. Like there was so many like really close, like uncomfortably close games that felt awkward, like where we're
Yeah.
still in it and just kind of like scraping by. But what was weird about that was it wasn't a feeling like we'd had uh, in previous tournaments where it felt like we could get to a level where we're good. It just felt like everything was a struggle. So what take me through like your memories of lock in.
Okay, I will say for lock-in, our first match was against EDG.
Oh, was it EDG? That was the first
Yes,
one.
and that was before people knew about EDG. And all these VLR users and Reddit thread users were like, we were supposed to 2-0 these guys, absolutely dominate these guys before they knew about Kong Kong. Let me tell you, that kid is insane. His and I mean all of them were insane. And I feel like coming into that, I didn't really like have. I don't think we watched any of their gameplay. We just knew a lot about King King's like T side op, but it's very different watching it than it is playing it. And like, we were definitely struggling on like how to play against it. And if it wasn't for like, I think Beaton had a masterclass Pearl, and
Yeah.
if it wasn't for that, we definitely would have went home day one. Unfortunately, luckily it didn't happen. Um, and I mean against Foot too, I think Foot was definitely another, obviously another like up and coming good team. Um, that was kind of the series where I could feel a little bit of the shakiness coming from us. Uh, but again, closed it out, got a little bit more confidence, and then we had to play the Fnatic, the fucking super team. Um, oh god, we
Yeah,
got
dude.
13-1. Jesus
Yeah, dude.
Christ.
That game.
Yeah, I mean
Oh,
they're the goats.
that game
I
was.
will.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, no, no. I will say I feel like we definitely could have closed out Icebox. Um, and then we were kind of confident in our Lotus because we had like a very we. I think we changed up our comp, and I forget what we were playing, but we were like we had a surprise ready for them. Um, obviously, I know their Lotus was very good, but I felt like we could have definitely. It should have been a lot closer than what it actually was, and yeah, another what if, but those guys were very good that tournament. Obviously, they won the fucking thing. So we lost to the winners.
Yeah, yes, it's really interesting because that Fnatic game as well, like that fracture that happened, was it reminded me of like some binds we played against them. I think at Champions and also against some other teams where a team will pick like that. This is of the time, of course. Like a team will choose a composition that is like very post plant. It's like it's the win conditions are all around the post plant. Like the comp the fracture comp that Fnatic used was Killjoy, Brimstone, Breach, raise and fade. So it's like a
Yeah,
really like post plant comp. So what you have to do is you can't really win against that comp if you allow them to set up. If you allow them to like run all the orbs and like get the set play exactly as they want it, and then they get to play the post plant with all that util, you're kind of wrecked at that point. So
hmm
you got to play in like a disruptive fashion, and it's interesting because I remember a lot of games we had lost like against Fnatic on Bind as well. In the champions where we knew that I remember like Mike and Sean like talking about that. Like I felt like everyone on the team like knew that okay, we got to be aggressive and disruptive, but it felt
yeah,
like only Will was able to do that at champions, and it felt like otherwise like the team just let Fnatic just execute on them again and again and
yeah.
again. And I don't know, do you remember like was it like a feeling of like hesitation or just like what do you think that comes down to, that kind of thing?
I think it's obviously big, big, the biggest tournament of your life, and it was four of our first, like four of our players' first times ever competing on a stage like that big. So definitely, I mean personally for I'm not gonna speak for the other guys, but personally for myself, I felt like a lot of pressure and hesitation, and I think I've slowly learned how, over the years or over the 2 years of like playing like on bigger stages that how to deal with that pressure. But it's definitely a lot to take in, like playing another top tier team, having a game plan, like knowing what you're supposed to do, but just those few seconds of hesitation causes you the round, and then it's just it's just the spiraling effect of like you lose a round, you overthink, it affects the next round, and on and on and on.
Yeah. It it's really interesting because it does feel like I think like what you're saying about the pressure element is definitely like definitely a big deal for sure. Because I know that in other environments I usually use like poker as an example for people who've played poker because everyone has like every human being has a relationship to money. And so in poker, when you're like in a big pot or a big hand, or if you're losing, let's say you're like running bad and you're losing a bunch of hands, like you start to like just tighten up a little bit, like
Yeah,
unconsciously, like you get more passive because
yeah, yeah.
there's that. that emotional connection, and then the you want to be more risk averse because you don't want to take the risk because you don't want to get hit again
Yeah.
negatively. But then you start, then you're not doing the correct strategy. Your emotions are kind of taking over, and I wonder if it's was like that to some degree when you're playing against comps where you have to play more risky because you kind of have to take. It feels more risky because you're having to like push and fight more against those comps, but at the same time, that's like the correct way to play against them. So it's I could see how if you add in the pressure of the stage match and you really don't want to make a mistake, you don't want to be the guy that puts your team in like a 4v5 like in the early to mid round timings. I could see how that would like really make that type of play style to counter it like quite difficult to like get into that mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I hate saying it, but the phrase "playing not to lose" and instead of playing to win was kind of a big thing. And I will say there's definitely trend points in the game where you can go for that mid round aggression, but um, when you're already in that mentality of just like hesitating, it's hard to take on those timings. And yeah, like you said, you don't want to be that guy that like you try to take the timing and then there's three guys holding you and you're like, fuck, why did I peek that? So definitely a lot plays into it.
So yeah, it's interesting. I always think when we talk about these kinds of things, I always think about, oh, what's the solution that you would do in practice? Like, how would you like? Do you do like some scrims where you're you're trying to encourage people to do like certain types, take certain types of risks and like get like reps on it, so that when you're in a match, you know, like you can kind of call back to like certain like early aggressions that you have, or like you give your teammates freedom to do that so people get more comfortable in doing it, or used to seeing, like I'm used to seeing Derrek run off, you know, right off the barrier and just like push my opponent at like the rush timing or something like that, because that's another thing I feel like I want to be able to be in sync with everybody on the team. So I feel like it's good if I know how that player plays, and if that player plays differently in the match because of the stress, now I'm like, oh, I'm like not getting clear signals now, or it's like hard. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I mean, the thing about it is it's like you can practice all you want in scrims and like it's just scrim. People play scrims way more differently, obviously, because there's not. It's just practice. There's nothing to it, and then you can practice all you want in like the server. But when it comes to match day, people tighten up. People play like angles, like off angles that you know, um, maybe you wouldn't see in scrims normally. Uh, it's a lot slower of a game depending on what teams you're playing. Um, Sometimes you start off very slow. Sometimes other team starts off very hot, and then I mean, there's just so many dynamics that influence like how the game goes, and I think you really, especially with how few games you play throughout a season now in franchising, you really have to make those like games count, and you really have to like get good reps while you're in that match, and then go over it and just tell yourself, you know what, I might have fucked up like taking that timing there. I'll learn that for next time because it's just scrims are just way too different than like actual match days.
yeah, it's tough. It's an interesting thing for like teams to have to problem solve. Like, how do you kind of optimize these things so that the players can feel like can be the most comfortable to perform. But let's like, because I definitely want to hit a few other points. I know we said an hour and a half. We're at an hour and 20 minutes. So
God
um,
damn. I'm gonna open the
um,
window.
do it. So I really want to know just I guess like your overall feelings of 2023, because just to set this stage for anyone who's listening doesn't know, obviously it was a really difficult year, I think, for the whole team. Like the whole team underperformed really ultimately.
Yeah.
And I know for you in particular, I almost felt like you felt like you got some of the worst of it in a way, because the way that the system trended, and also you know how that impacted you as a support player, you became, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like you became more and more supportive over time. So then it seemed like it's very hard for you to find, or to even have space maybe in the system to feel free, to really
Yeah.
unlock yourself and feel comfortable. And it seemed like there was a lot of different breakdowns happening. So I don't know if you want to go into your feelings of your performance and your struggles in 2023.
Uh yeah, I I feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but like you said, I feel like the team as a whole, we were like we lacked a team identity the entire season. We're struggling between what should Matt play because Chambers is kind of out of the meta. We have Peter who's like the goat raise, but then what do we how do we work the roles around? And like I said, Mike also had a lot on his plate. We lost our assistant coach right before the season started, and it just felt like we were playing catch up the entire season. Um, I also think losing that first match to Sentinels like hurt our confidence a little bit. Obviously, we played EG the following week, and then we 2-0'd them, which kind of helped, I guess. But um, yeah, I don't know. I felt like over the course of those weeks too, I slowly started losing confidence in my own ability, and I think I kind of shelled up. And it was at that point I was like, we were talking about like team comps and like different things for different maps, and I was like, I think I didn't really speak my mind on certain things, and I didn't really bring up things that I like. I didn't really bring up. How should I phrase this? I felt like I was band-aiding problems instead of truly speaking my mind on certain like topics like team comps or plays or how I think that we should run round X through X. I felt like okay, these guys need me to play Harbor, or they need to play KJ just to fill in the slot. I will do my best to do that, just because if that's what they want from me, I'll do it just to appease to the um. And looking back now, in hindsight, maybe I should have said, I don't really want to play Harbor. I don't really want to play KJ. I think we should do this instead, and I think this would be better. And I had more of a voice for myself. I think maybe I would have the confidence to like play a little bit better. But yeah, it was truly a rough season to say the least.
I think there's a couple points to what you're saying for me at least for listeners. I think, which is there is you're talking about the stuff that you can take control over, and I think which is obviously the most important thing because that's stuff that you can use in the future.
Yeah,
And but there's this other aspect too that we don't necessarily need to go into, but for players where it's like if the environment isn't great for whatever reason, it can be like a million different things. It could just be losing. Like losing is not the best environment to be in. Like it makes everyone feel a bit worse about things, and sometimes that can create problems. And sometimes it can be you can be in a spot where it's kind of hard to do the right things. But whereas if you were winning, the communication's a bit more free. People are more willing to experiment. People are just easier to deal with in a sense too. So I think there is something to be said for the managers and the coaches and the players out there too that do a really good job of like keeping teams in a place where they can function really well when things are a struggle. So that it's like easier for you, like if like you're in a low point as a player, it's still easy for you to give the value to the team in the way that you should want to give that value. Like that's at least like what I think about, because it's you could be placed in a situation where you could say I could have been more vocal, but like what if everyone's an asshole and like no one's gonna listen to you? It doesn't matter at that point, even if you are vocal. Obviously that I'm not saying that happens. No one was an asshole or anything like that with Iron Thieves, but I just think it's important sometimes to like talk about how nuanced some of these things can be, and how, because I think it also gives more credit to the people that do really well with the teams in terms of the managers and the coaches, who I think a lot of people don't necessarily know what they're thinking or like what they're doing or what they're trying to achieve. So anyway, that's my little aside. So you've got all of this stuff that you can bring into your next team, which is awesome. But in terms of going back, I guess I was just wrapping up 2023 with 100 Thieves. What are some things that you would have done differently, apart from like be more communicative? Is there anything else that you wish you could have gone back and done with the experience?
Um, looking back at the year, I really I really wish I um maybe did a little bit more for myself and just like bringing new ideas on how to play Sky a little bit more in a style that I might have wanted to play her. Um, it truly felt whenever I played Sky, I was just like an info and flash bot. Like I felt like I was never a part of any game plan besides just getting information and just like being a flasher. Um, which is, I mean, I'm okay with doing that, but I think I'm more than just a flash and info gatherer. I could like shoot my gun sometimes. Um, but I, I I think I should have brought that up a little bit more, which I did bring up like once or twice, but not to an extent where I was like, okay, we'll change some stuff. Um, other than that, you know, I think that was a year where the the community and just overall general look in 100 Thieves was like, man, this guy is really shitting the bed. Like this guy's a LCQ merchant. Like it was like a lot of there was a lot of like there's a lot of people like bringing up like how I only performed in LCQ, and I mean I could say like those comments don't affect me, but back then like just reading some of them and just it was I felt like it was compounding and the pressure of being like the top NA team besides like who it was like for whatever reason because we won Homegrounds everyone thought we were the fucking best team or like one of the best NA teams. Um, so just coming into the regular season with that pressure of having to perform and being the best, um, one of the best NA teams definitely didn't help. Uh, Obviously, slowly I've learned how to deal with that pressure. Um, but yeah, I think if there was stuff to change, it was just I probably wish I took the time to take a look at it from the outside and just be like, I'm truly blessed to be in the position that I am in, and I should do everything in my power that year to play the best, to do my best, to bring ideas to my teams that would cater to my play style and still be in line with the goals that we have. Just so at the end of the year, even if we went in a 5-way tie with 3 teams that we beat and we don't make playoffs, at the end of the year, I could say I did my very best and I would have no regrets. Um, that's probably what I would have changed.
Mm. Well, I mean, it's what's awesome, and I mean, I'm sure it was not awesome at the time. Is you're still playing on a team, but you didn't know that. Like you probably assumed that you wouldn't be on a franchise team. I mean, is it fair to say that you?
Yes,
Yeah, you're pretty surprised.
I accepted that I was not going to be franchised. I was going to join Turtle Troops, or there was a few more challengers teams that like I was playing with, but I was ready to join Turtle Troops. I was ready to prove myself in tier 2. I was ready to put in that work again and make my way back to franchising. And then there was a rumor that Com was going to Leviathan, and yeah, I was playing. I've said this story a few times, but I was playing ARAMs at like 6 in the morning. It was like a few days after Christmas, and Potter DM'd me on Twitter, and I was like, "Can you play in 4 hours?" And I was like, "Fuck."
In 4 hours,
and,
dude.
and I was like, I went to sleep right away. I took like a 3 hour nap, took a cold shower, got some, got a cold brew, got some caffeine
The
mints,
classic.
and yeah, and I think I did pretty well that day actually. And yeah, they picked me up thankfully, and I'm really happy with the team that I have now.
Awesome, dude. If I have one contribution to your career, it's introducing you to
But
Neurogum.
oh man, those neuroments, they're the cheat code. I'm trying to put people on, but
Nice.
they don't like the taste of them. Like,
Oh, really?
why the fuck? I don't give a fuck about the taste. Like, bro, these things are like cheat codes.
Yeah, yeah. For those of you that don't know, it's like a Eurogum is it's just like you can get little like gums or actually I think they do mints as well, where it's this
Yeah, they do mints.
it's just like it's just caffeine at like a pretty low like a reasonably low dose. I think it's like what 40 grams or something, like
It's
60
40.
grams.
It's yeah, 40 milligrams per mint, and then it's like the regular serving size is like two.
Right, yeah. There you go. So it's like, and 80 is like like a small cup of coffee, 80 grams
Yeah,
of like black coffee. And it's got L-theanine in there as well. So it's kind of like kind of calms out, it calms down the caffeine a little bit. But you still get kind of that stimulating effect of the caffeine. But like proper ratios, like kind of hard actually. Most products have like way too much caffeine and way too much L-theanine. So it's hard for you to kind of like find a good balance. But also, um, uh, the fancy word for chewing, masticating, there is a benefit between the benefit for doing that in terms of cognition. Like motorcyclists use it as it's like in their community to have like better cognition and reaction times and stuff like that. So there's definitely quite a few things to it, and I've noticed more people chewing gum and stuff when they play now. So
yeah. I definitely noticed an upsurge about that. I've tried to do it. I cannot I don't know what it is, but I don't chew gum during match days or even scrim days.
mm.
I don't know what it is. It just feels distracting to me. But maybe if I have a slump again, hopefully never again. But if it does happen, I'll try it. But not for any foreseeable future.
Yeah. How do you like? What do you do? Because I know on match days, you have your own routine and stuff, I actually use Bang as an example for people as well when talking about this a little bit because I think he's a good one because he's like a high energy person naturally. So when he's scrimming, he has caffeine because on a scrim day there's like no pressure or anything like that. So it helps him get his energy where it needs to be, which is up. And
Yeah,
then when he's playing a match, that he already has kind of like high energy anyway. So to kind of play at his peak, knowing that he's going to have like adrenaline and cortisol like in the system because he's competing, he doesn't have the caffeine because it's like okay now that would be too much that would take me over the
yeah.
edge. So he doesn't have caffeine on the competition days. So for you, Derek, what's your kind of because Derek, like everybody on the team, worked with a performance dietitian that we had as well. So like if they had any questions or wanted to dial in like his kind of pre-performance like routine with all of this. Yeah, I don't actually know what yours is, Derek, except cold brew.
Mm, I well, mine was cold. I've implemented a few little things, but mine was cold shower just to like feel fully awake right from the get go, no matter how much sleep I got. Usually, I try to get at least like 7 to 8 hours. I feel like past 8 hours, I feel more groggy than I do relaxed. Um, so cold shower. I've stopped with the acai bowls. Usually,
Oh
yeah,
my
I've stopped
god.
with that.
Whoa,
Yeah,
what happened,
yeah.
man?
I realized that after I would play the match, I was so hungry. I I would be like, it felt like I haven't eaten in 2 days. That like just hungry. So I was like, maybe there's something like to this. And I was thinking to myself, sometimes I feel like that that is a lot of sugar that I'm eating at one given time with all
Mhm.
this like acai and all these fruits and like I I've transitioned to like just like a chicken rice veg. Like I just like order Whopper Grill and just get like a chicken veg bowl. Um, and that's my pregame meal. Um, just to have some substance, and then my sugar comes from like I know Casey or our nutritionist was like or 100 T's nutritionist. He was pretty big on like blueberries or grapes in between matches, and I still do that. Um, but another thing was I try to take like just a quick 5-10 minute walk out in the just out get some sun in the cold. I feel like that kind of grounds you too, and I it kind of gets me ready for match day. But yeah, nothing different besides cold showers. Drop this eye bowl, actually eat like a meal, and I'm not starving after match. So I feel like it's a little bit better for me.
Yeah. Do you do any well in terms of like keeping yourself like sharp mechanically and stuff? Do you just play ranked and stuff, or do you do anything else other than that?
I know you talked about I know you talked with Dapper about like aim trainers and stuff.
Yeah.
I did get into it like after I was dropped from 100 Thieves, I was like, "Fuck, man, am I really that like shit? Like, like fuck, man." So I went like full grind mode. I went like I did aim. There was like a I forget whose routine it was. Like it might have been like Demon's one routine. Some guy on YouTube like made it better or something. I stole a few.
Oh, Mini God, he like made a better version of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mini God. I stole a few of the like the scenarios from that, and then I made my own playlist. It was like 7 or 8 little games, and I would start my day off with doing it, and then end my night by doing it again. And I did that for like a month, and I streamed, played rank. My warm up is like TDMs. I think TDMs to this day are the best way to warm up. I, it's hard to argue against it just because like it really is just Valorant. There's still abilities you can hear. Like there's not like bad spawns where people are in DMs are just sound whoring and just killing you off spawn. Um, I I, I I really like TDMs for warm up. Um, but yeah, I I stopped with the aim labs because I feel like I'm at a point right now where I'm very confident in my mechanics again, and I think just playing TDMs and just keeping the knife sharp is good enough for me. But I do see the benefit of doing aim labs. Well, certain scenarios, not the fucking ones where it's just like there's a bunch of circles on your screen and you're going for the fastest fucking.
Like great shot, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That to me is useless. But like there's ones where it's like there's a target and then you hit it and then it goes left and then you hit it again and it goes right and then you hit it again and it goes left. That one to me helped me a lot because um at Valorant especially in like top level gunfights you rarely see like people crouching and it's usually AD strafing and just people movement aiming sometimes. And that scenario for me really helps a lot. Just to warm up that aspect of my aim. So I like to do that one occasionally.
Nice. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's like isolation, like isolating the things that you wanna train. So
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense. And your aim was looking super sharp when you're playing these matches lately. It's looking really good. It's really fun to because you could tell too. Like I could see the way that you were moving, like the types. There's this one particular. I think it was the 1v4 you got in Sunset where
Yeah.
you were. Do you know what I'm talking about? And so
Yeah.
you made this move where the guy was trying to defuse, but like but the way that you had moved, you'd hit like a timing, and you read the timing like straight away that he thought the most likely thing would be that you would have been a bit further away. So
Yeah. I
what
took
you
behind the
did was
box.
you went into like a aggressive off angle, like
Hmm.
super aggressive, and he didn't read that at all. He couldn't have. But for
Yeah.
you to make that call in your mind, you have to be really confident
Hmm.
because you're just fighting, and if you lose the fight, he just diffuses, and so
Yeah. In my mind, that was a fucking tough round, by the way. As soon as I got the 2 kills on the right, like to the right of default, and I was like 24 HP, I realized to myself, I was like, if I play behind default, I'm literally just gonna lose this round because he's gonna spam me. And that's exactly what he did. I ran, I pretended like I tucked behind the box, and then he spammed the box. So if I actually committed to be playing behind the box, I just would have died. So in my mind, I was like, the only way I'm winning this round is if I feint running behind the box and just wide swing super wide and just one tap him as he gets off the defuse. And yeah, thank God I hit the shot.
yeah, that looked amazing. Like you looked really good in terms of your individual form, and also
Thank you, thank you.
just seeing that you were able to have more freedom to actually like play and be in those spots because it wasn't that you necessarily weren't getting some of those spots. I think in 2023, it's just that it just seems like you didn't feel the freedom and confidence that you found now with EG. So we can talk a little bit about EG because we're over an hour and a half, and I really want to squeeze it in if you have if you do have time.
No, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's what most people probably want to hear. But um, this EG lineup truly feels to me kind of like how the 100 Thieves lineup felt, the rebuilt lineup in 2022 kind of felt like. I'm getting those vibes where it's just like you got one veteran player, Jaw, who wants to prove himself again, obviously. He's a crackhead raise, and just overall, he just plays anything. And then you got 4 newcomers that have a lot to prove. They want to prove themselves. Um, and I gotta I got the Goach in the back just cooking stuff up. I love working under Potter. I think I understand why um, last year's roster won champs with how she works. Um,
Can you explain that? You said you understand why, so now you now, now you have to explain. You must give away all the secrets.
her, yeah, not trying to give away the sauce, but I think Boucher said this before, so I'll just reiterate that her style of coaching is not having a valid plan, like, and you're able to scroll fucking 5 minutes down and you have strats A to Z with like subsections of said strats. It's very simple, at most maybe 6 to 8 strats per map, because you rarely will ever get to use any of these fucking strats anyways, and it's more default, 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 and let the mid round come to you, and you do that 12 rounds in a row, and you play against a team, and you see all the possible gaps in any circumstance against any team comp, and you just do that over and over and over and over again. And I feel like for Valorant, that's like one of the best ways to practice the game is just doing the same thing over and over and over and over and seeing how the enemy team, seeing how they push and pull and how they aggress or how they fall back to what you're doing. And there's patterns with all these teams that you can apply to pretty much every game. So that's one aspect of her coaching. I don't think I can give up like the other sauce, but I will say she does a lot.
Well, that's awesome
Yeah.
because it's obviously it's obviously having an impact, and I think it's really cool, especially for, it's a really cool test for her. I wanted to get her on the podcast, but I think she doesn't tend to do podcasts. Maybe one day
I'll
I'll get
I'll
the
I'll I'll ask her, but I'll
nice.
vouch. I'll vouch.
Um, well, I think it's interesting for her because obviously the whole EG thing for everyone kind of fucking sucks. Like none of the players, I don't think wanted to like break up the championship team. I can't imagine that she would have either. You spend all
Yeah.
year like working on this thing and it succeeds, and then it's like you got to give it away. It's like that Buddhist art where they spend like a week drawing something in sand, and as soon as they're done, they just instantly wipe it clean, like it's just gone, and they just destroy it.
Yeah.
I forget what that's called, but that's kind of what the EG roster was like. You get to this like point of completion with it, and then you just don't get to enjoy it beyond the one like major win. Well, I guess they had some good tournaments leading up to that. But anyway, the point is that it's cool for her that she gets to say, okay, well, watch me do it again. And that's like the kind of the cool thing about this team is that you guys are in this position where, again, much like the EG team from last year, it's not that you guys are, let's say, a joke or anything like that, but it's more just that no one has expectations because you've got
Yeah.
all these like killers in terms of like rosters and players and like established cores and all this business. So so why would anyone say, okay, well here's like this what seems like a random assortment of like players that no one's thought about for a tier one team. And so it's the same thing almost because of course
Yep.
before you had Ethan at least use like kind of a big proven name and so on and so forth. But still, like it's kind of interesting. I'm super curious to see how the project works. So far, you guys have, I think, looked really good. You won your opening match, and against Loud, it obviously there were moments when it looked competitive. Ultimately, Loud
Yep.
is obviously really
Loud is
sick.
loud.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but take me through that first match experience. You're on stage, you've been with 100 Thieves for 2 years. Now you're playing for EG, and you're saying you've got those kind of like early 100T vibes. The teams are just like really looking like everyone's like just vibing super well. So what's that first match like on stage under EG?
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty rough going down 0-7 against G2 on Sunset. But uh, the vibes were still like very good, even though we're down 0-7. And we were like, listen, guys, all we need is that one round. That one round, the hardest one to get, and then we'll stack up the rounds from there. Um, so just seeing that, honestly, to me, the most impressive thing was just seeing like my guys just keeping the their mentality in it, even though we were down so many rounds. I feel like even for cores that have been together for months or years, like being down 0-7, especially in Valorant, where the game is just you snowball off that. You, that's like a that's map one already gone. Like you're thinking about map two already. But just seeing my guys stay in it was just it was it was awesome to see. It was like it was really I think it really shows like the level that this roster can get to with just more time. Um and shout out I'll give one shout out in particular to Apoth because I truly haven't seen like much of him besides like a few maybe like challengers games where he was playing or like a few games when he was on the main roster, but he literally plays exactly the way he plays in scrims. Like our Potter will tell him to just like run it down and take every timing that he can get in scrims, and in your mind, you're like, uh, he might not do that in a match, but he he took every timing he possibly could, and I gotta respect it because he did like win us a lot of rounds doing it. And obviously he gets punished. It's like a double edged sword playing that aggressive, obviously, but it was really cool to see that like he he plays exactly how he does in practice. Just it just gives you so much confidence because like if we're doing if we're playing like how we do in practice this early, just imagine when we get reps on every single map and we flush out every single map, kind of like how we got to do on Sunset, and we get to watch our opponents play on a week by week basis, and we get to anti-strat like how we anti-strat Loud on Ascent. Just being in that format, I feel like will be very beneficial to us.
It's a great point to bring up as well for people because I think it's another one of those like dilemmas you have in a team that I think people on the outside don't see as much. Where a team gets to the match and it's like the team doesn't play as they were in practice, and so then
Yeah,
it's like everyone's like ripping their hair out at this point because it's like we've done all this practice, but like for what? Because now no one's on the same page,
yeah,
and that's very difficult to deal with, and it can happen because the practice environment is different to
mhm,
the live environment. So that is really like especially for a new player because normally
yeah.
the newer players would tighten up a bit, like we just talked about. I think so. That's really cool to
That
see.
guy did not tighten up at all.
That's awesome. Tell me about some of your other teammates. Like, what's it like working with Nature and Superman and Jorgamo?
I mean, obviously reuniting with Superman with Fought. It honestly felt like we didn't take a 2 year, 2.5 year break playing without each other. It instantly clicked. No matter what site we're on, I feel like we just know what the other person is thinking. Uh, Jogamo played with him in ranked since the very beginning. I know what he's capable of. I've seen him win champs. Um, I know exactly what I'm gonna get out of him. I know when I could say, "Okay, Jaw, go in. I will win you this round," and he'll do it. And he'll tell me he needs this piece of util, this piece of util to win us around, and I'll do it, no hesitation. So shout out to the Dogimo. As far as nature, Nick, um, I had zero experience with him. Obviously, I watched Homegrounds where he trialed for 100 Thieves, and I didn't know what to think of that. I was just like, it, I basically I wasn't impressed. But after playing with him, I really like his calling. I think he's very good at knowing when to change the pace of the game. I think he's very good at mid rounding and just coming with ideas on the fly. I think we bounce like very well off each other. Um, and I really enjoy like um I enjoy working under him.
Awesome. I mean, it's really cool. It's super cool. I'm like a huge fan of watching you guys play. Firstly, I like to see you because I saw you in like the support jail a little bit. I feel like in 2023, so it's kind of
Yeah,
satisfying to see you kind of have more freedom in your play and like to get to like exhibit that in a match. So that's I've been
yeah.
enjoying that a lot. So yeah, obviously you guys did lose to Loud, but like what was the team's overall feeling after coming away from that match?
Uh, well, to even begin with it, we were super confident against playing their Breach Phoenix on Ascent. We were like, I think, I personally think playing Phoenix on Ascent is the most pro thing you can ever do. Just because, I mean, we abused it. You can't get past 2 Odins and a Nop without a Space Creator. Like, we were just, I, I don't think I saw half my kills. Like, it was just spamming people through walls. Half my kills were just spamming through people through walls. I didn't see like half these guys. But anyways, yeah. We were super confident after we won Ascent. Obviously, we are like, holy fuck, we. I personally, I was like, holy fuck, I won an Ascent. Like, there's no way we're gonna lose this now.
Yeah, don't even care about being
Yeah.
loud, but it's
I
like
was
I
like,
just won an
yeah, I don't
Ascent
get.
game.
I fucking won an Ascent. Holy shit.
That's amazing.
And then, uh, but reeled it back, and then I was like, in my head, I was like, we anti-shredded the fuck out of them on Ascent, so they probably did the same to us on Icebox, and I could tell they definitely watched our shot on Icebox. They found a lot of our gaps. They were very confident just walking up and taking contact fights because that's how you counter deadlock. You just walk up to her sound sensors, and then that's where you pop from. Um, there was no like jet. There was no abusing a jet dashing into our sound sensors because they kind of had an idea of where to counter that. And again, it's loud. They were hitting fucking shots. Like I was, I was getting a headshot like as soon as someone came up to my screen. I felt like I had no chance. And I think our mentality was still pretty good after losing Icebox. We were like, fuck. I mean, they probably anti-stratted us. They're hitting shots. Like, obviously, I think all of us expected this. If we were going to win it, it was not going to be a 2-0. It was going to be a 3-map series. Coming into Sunset was a little rough, obviously, because they were carrying a bunch of momentum. Again, it's another map. They probably watched us play, and they probably anti-shotted us. And it felt like they started off super hot, and we just ran out of fuel a little bit. I know Jaw was having a super unlucky game. Like I've watched like 5 or 6 fucking watch parties of this because you gotta watch the watch parties. But there was a lot of rounds where he was truly unlucky. Like he had no chance in the round, and yeah, you could definitely tell like a lot of our guys were like losing fuel. And you can't do that against a team like that because they just they they're in it till the very end. I feel like I was pretty proud of my performance. I think I proved to myself that like, I can still shoot back. That 2023 year was not the peak of my gameplay. And yeah, I think coming out of that match, I was like, you know what, guys? We took a map off Loud. We got anti-shredded the fuck out of us. I just can't wait for the regular season. Like, I think all of us just could not wait for the regular season. It's a bummer to miss out on Madrid, but in the grand scheme of things, we get an extra month of practice, a little bit over a month of practice, and we can flush out all of our maps. And yeah, I think that's the. It was. I'm not too mad about missing Madrid. I think we had a very good showing.
It does feel like it helps you. It because the team is like still pretty new. Like you said, you guys have a lot of stuff to go through. It's the beginning of the year. It actually feels like it does help you guys quite a lot, actually. So I'm super excited about what's next for your team. Again, just the storyline in of itself. Low expectations, but there's a lot of promise there. Everybody in the project seems to be having like just everyone seems to be like in the right place, which is really cool to see. So can't wait to see where everyone ends up at the end of the season. With that said, I know that you're going to be streaming a lot during you got a week off at the moment. So yeah, feel free to plug any of the stuff that you're doing. Like where should people come to follow you?
Okay. Well, thank you for watching. Twitch.tv/DerrekOW. I start the stream around 6 PST, 7 PST, and I stream all the way until like a little past midnight. So yeah, stop on by, say hi, and buy the EG bundle. Please fucking buy the EG bundle. Thank you.
Well, Derek, it's been like awesome talking to you. I'm sorry I took some extra time than I said I would,
No, you're good.
but but I appreciate you, and I will tune into your stream. I'll see you on the stream. Bye.
Bye.